Hello dear Craftworldians, Marko is with you, and today I will teach you how to paint using glazes. This technique can be used to multiple levels of details. It will also show you how to do a wet blending and how to mix colors. The model I am using for this tutorial is Squat Prospector for Necromunda range by Games Workshop. I started by priming model in black and then I did the zenith using white paint. This method gave me a nice start point with already defined main volumes that I require since my next paint layers will be translucent. Paint that I have on my palette are emerald green, magenta, primary blue, red and yellow, plus white. I will start mixing the paints for his skin tone. And as you can see, I am thinning down the paints by adding water to create glaze consistency. This is not a wash because I still need a bit of brush control over the painting layer. The best way to explain it will be as a traditional aquarelle consistency. The bristle should not be overloaded with paint. Keep that in mind. In first walkthrough, you can follow how I am sketching and shading his face, drawing the eyebrows and facial hair. I created this stone mixing emerald green and red, then I applied red glaze over his nose and lips. For the first layer that I am applying on his armor, I decided to go with mix of white and emerald, with a pinch of primary yellow. I am letting the shades mix, so on some area I will leave more emerald, while on other I will leave more yellow. This gives me a nice uneven tone that feels more natural. While waiting for that to dry, I am applying paint on his ornamented belt buckle. For this, I mix primary red, magenta, pinch of yellow and emerald. Then I applied more yellow into the mix and went with glazes over his belt. For his clothing I went with pure emerald glaze, but on the upper parts I mixed a bit of primary yellow. You can notice by now that I am doing a lot of wet blending, and that is why I really enjoy this technique, so I recommend you to try and experience it for yourself. Afterwards, I created verdigris effect by mixing white and emerald green. This time I used wash consistency by mixing more water, focusing on recesses of the details. As well, I shaded some of the parts of the belt. Continuing with this principle, I did the weathering effect, glazing around the bolts and corners of his armor. I do enjoy this strong contrast between emerald and orange tones, as it looks eye-catching and it gives the age to this material. In the next stage, I am glazing the shadows over emerald clothing by using magenta. This layer is very thin and it might disappear, but it will give the depth and the richness to the fabric. After all basing stages are done, I'm continuing to the highlights. For this, I'm using a bit of thicker layers. It is a mix of emerald and white, what I'm applying over a flat surface, light placements, as well as the edges of the armor. This might need multiple layers, and you can use your brush strokes to create little scratches and strong highlights. Going back on his buckle, I highlighted with a mix of red and yellow with a bit of magenta, keeping the previous created base as a shade and applying highlights to define the details. The same goes for his face. I added white and yellow to the mix I created earlier, and I focused the highlight at the top of his nose, cheeks and lips. I continued those highlights by using some of the mid-tones to define his face and facial expression better. Then I reinforced the red saturation with a glaze of red beneath his eyes and on his lips to give him more aliveness. Next phase is to define the texture of the leather, and I'm creating it by multiple brush strokes going vertically, as well as with some of the stronger highlights on the upper edge. For his clothing, I started highlighting it with emerald and primary yellow, bringing the highlights to the lighter values gradually. For his leather gloves and hammer grip, I went with a similar method as on the belt, but I am going much brighter with tones. You can use this method also for his boots. I finished the rest of the model using the methods mentioned and explained earlier in this tutorial, and to complete this project I created a base for this squat miner. Aleksandra and I both hope you enjoyed this new lesson and learn something new. Until the next one, bye bye.